of the topic for today.
Okay, so you want me to do the
Yeah.
topic now? Okay. So you wanted to talk about crop circles, and the links that you gave me actually had to do with crop circles, but it also had to do with the new AI. Um, they call it AI slop. That's been going viral on the internet, and it's caught on camera crop circle videos. Now, that was what I ended up finding out about that. Uh, I know whenever we had our conversation, you said you wanted to actually talk about crop circles instead of that. So maybe you can start out with a little bit about what you wanted to discuss originally.
Okay. Well, I've seen the videos of the field of crops in the UK and how it what happens there and all that. And he's saying that this happens from sundown to sun up, the whole area of acres of crops being processed. In what way does it being processed? In what way does the, the, the soil changes? And does the change go through the soil to the plant itself? And when it does, how it looks is, as they said, it's like an inch for every inch the plant folds over. Where it folds over, to me, looks like it goes through a magnetic change where the process without breaking it, but it like magnetic has something to do with magnetics, where it folds the plant over. Like the acid from the plant gets, in what way does the acid from the plant get changed? It's like electrical. It is, as they said. Okay, and what way does it change in the process? And different types of plants, does it have different types of levels of the N acids in the plant? And when it happens, okay, and what type of plants, the weather from it as well, because that's, and I noticed that around when they do the crops, pick up the crops, the soil has the same match as what was before the plants were removed as well. So it does the soil go through a drastic change as well. The molecules, does it change as well in the soil for it to make the print of it, for the print still to be there for the next probably 3 years, or however long it lasts. How long does the print last of what was designed on in the crops? And does it change from different brands of soil? One could be clay, one could be dark. What's the level of soil for type of plants, and how does plant registers, and what happens they showed about the seeds they get mutated, and in what way does it changes all that? Can you explain, Roger?
Yeah, well, no, I've never heard of anybody really talk about changes with the plants themselves. I know that the biggest thing I've heard is about um, when it comes to crop circles. A lot of people. You're gonna have to mute while I'm talking, Robert.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people A lot of people who talk about that are now a lot of people who talk about crop circles usually when they talk about them, it's usually about the damage that's done to the plants whenever they're folded over. You know what I mean? It's not really just a. They don't really get into if the plants have been changed or anything like that. And a lot of people still hold on to the idea that all the crop circles are hoaxed, which is kind of ridiculous considering how many there are. You know, and there are some crop circles that have been hoaxed, but they just take it a little bit too far. I mean, you have crop circles that are worldwide, and they believe that people are getting out there with pieces of wood and string and knocking down the crops. You know what I mean? And they're supposed to be so good that they're not damaging the freaking stalks of the plants, which is completely ridiculous. But no, I haven't heard of anybody talking about any changes that have occurred with um, the the plants themselves. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. But what more or less what I'm referring to is that, like when you take a piece of grass and when you put it on your skin, how you get that acid, how it makes you itch. Okay, chemicals like that within the plant itself. Okay, and with the type of as okay, and the orbs. Okay, might not be a person, but a device where it's a program where it has an ability to go through and through make the process in 20 acres. Okay, you can that 20 acres makes you wonder if it's magnetic, where it's using its molecules to alter the plant, the layout of the plant, where it's how far, and the the construction of the plant. That's the way I can put it. Performance of the plant, and you can tell from fake from originality, because as they showed on there. And if you was to take that plant in to have it tested, what is the chemical? What type of chemicals is being altered in it? If it has or hasn't, because if they're have an ability to take and flatten inch by inch perfect lines, the soil and the plant itself, then you can tell the difference if they're using high tech like magnetics. Okay, a plant has to have metals in it too. It has to absorb metals. The process of the soil, and in what way does it changes the magnetic from the minerals from the soil? What does the soil? Have anyone ever decided to test the soil? And what different things of soil different from the rest of it? I know they did a thing from inside of the plants, inside of it from the outside, and two different things. But did they ever find out in what way is the soil? If the soil's been changed, in what way? If it makes it more or less fertile than before? Because they were in what way? In what way does the soil, if it's able to support better or longer with plants, and if so, what is the pH level of the plant after the process of it? And what I'm referring to is that you don't have. I'm referring to the change of when the plant gets folded over without being snapped. The heart of the plant itself, inside of the plant itself, It's in what way from the root to where it bends at? What way does make changes? Like if it's magnetic, what kind of mineral molecules is altered in the process? Like, okay, flying saucers, they have that thing about like what happened in Arizona when the guy walked out of a truck and got zapped by and he would put it on board the alien craft. The guy went out a few years ago on the side around of where it happened that trees grew better, higher, and all that. Within that circle area, plants got better in size and in health. Outside didn't. That's what I'm referring to. In what way the comparisons from the two, from the orbs. Okay. Can you say much of anything about that?
Yeah, hold on a minute. I've got to. Yeah, actually, I do. It's I had to figure out where my unmute button is. I'm sitting here trying to pull stuff up that that I was looking into. Now, like I said at the beginning, whenever you first had me pull this stuff up, they were talking about AI. People are using AI to fake they call it AI slop. They're using AI to create fake viral videos about crop circles that show up overnight. Now that is the thing that I think a lot of people are catching on to there, that it's actually AI slop because they're creating videos where the crop circles just appear instantaneously. Where a lot of people who are actually into crop circles, and have been since the 1970s, they tell you that these crop circles are supposed to happen gradually overnight, and then they always end up in areas that are recognizable, like close to a road or close to a farm or somewhere that where people actually notice it. And like most of the AI slop is usually located all the way out in the middle of nowhere where nobody sees it, according to the video. And they do that because of the terrain when it comes to the AI. So I did want to point that out, that's what I ended up finding whenever I looked at those. But when it comes to the crop circles, the big debate about it is, and everybody keeps bringing it up, is like the plant flexibility. Now, the whole claim behind that, the reason why people who are against the phenomena of crop circles, uh, um, the ones who are against it, they come up with a counter argument about the folding over. They say that the plant during the months that they're usually being done is being done during the time of the year when they have high plant flexibility or pliability. And according to what they say, most crop circles are created during the peak summer months. And at that point in the growing season, the stems of crops like wheat, barley, and canola are green and succulent and highly pliable. And that's because they're filled with moisture and they act like fresh green twigs rather than dry brittle sticks. Now they're saying that these people, all of these people, are so freaking expert at freaking creating crop circles that they can use steady uniform pressure to apply uh, uh, a standard stomping board basically down on the stalks and it causes the stalks to bend easily, at a sharp angle without any mistakes, and without causing any snapping or anything to the outer walls of the stem or to anything like that. So that's what their big argument is, or their big thing is, that they're trying to say that they all do these like during the peak summer months because of that, because it's easily to do it. And I also checked in to what you were talking about when it comes uh to the effects of the things, and skeptics and researchers, all of them have noticed that the crop circles, when they're formed, they have nodes like the knuckle-like joints along the plant stem. They often appear elongated or stretched or bent. Okay, now fringe groups, that they argue that this stretching is caused by like sudden exposure to localized microwave or electromagnetic energy that's heating the water inside the plant. Now, botanists have made the statement that this is actually like a natural plant survival mechanism, and it's known as gravitropism, or geotropism, whichever one you want to call it. And that's when a living plant is forced to flat on its back. Its hormones quickly redistribute to simulate rapid cell growth on the bottom side of the node. And this extra growth acts like a hinge, which is actively trying to bend the stalk back upwards towards the sun. And like I've noticed that even with like plants, they always want to try to they want to go upwards. You know what I mean? They'll fall over and then they'll move back and forth. Like a lot of people don't realize that plants aren't just like swaying with the wind. They're swaying with the wind, but then they are also moving themselves back into position afterwards. So it's a constant struggle between the wind blowing them and then them straightening themselves out. So I always did find that interesting, but I don't buy it when it comes to what we're talking about here. You know what I mean? There's just there's too many of them for one thing. You know what I mean? For them to say that this is a hoax, there's just tons and tons of crop circles all around the world. This isn't like in one geographical area. You know what I mean? So, and not everybody is going to be experts at doing this stuff, and they've got elaborate crop circles. So, I hope that helped you with some of your questions that you wanted me to answer.
Yeah, it does. And I noticed a few things. Okay, when you look at crop circles, the layout of the crop circles, it says something right there. How you know it's not fake? Okay, because when crops, the depth of a crop designed to make a picture of to design and all that. You as a person, you start to think, okay, when it from the ground to the tip of your finger, of your small finger, about the distance from the soil to where it starts to bend, and from the bend, from where it's flat to the ground. But if you add like 2 to 3 inches each way for each inch for every 2 inches, you go up about half an inch of where the plants go up to. Makes you wonder. There ain't no way a person with a board able to do that depth of it, and that's like that that probe would have to know the right way of implementing that into service to alter that plant for that depth of the layout of a picture. A person so far I haven't seen it. And when it comes to the plants were like beans and all that, have they came across any smashed beans in the process when they're talking about that? Any fruit, vegetables, or anything? Okay, like with rice. Okay, rice or wheat. Because if it's a person, okay, you automatically see all that lamb all over the field where they took it down. Okay, to me as well, if it's, and that's what I'm referring to, magnetic and radiation can alter the plant where you want what you want done. Then if you're taking, to me, you're controlling the the molecules of the plants. You're altering the plant itself in such a way that you're making it fold in a round circle or laying down a specific way of to make a picture of it. And you're doing the same thing with the soil because the soil has the outline of what you're creating as well too. And and it and it's like minerals of the soil. Okay. Radiation, microwave and all that, it destroys it like minerals. Like if you got raw iron in the soil, doesn't it alter? Don't it destroy the soil iron in the soil for the plant's health? Where it's changing it, and for for for, for all the plants and all that, you can as well too. When people doing that by hand, they're snapping. They're not. It's not bending like a rubber band or like straw. Okay, you get the straw effect when it's to me where when the probe is doing it. The probe is able to go through in no minutes flat, lay down the design, depth, and all that. And it has a thing of knowing how big is the acreage to that place is. It's precise on how far of it. It's like a ground sonar, where it knows the right how big it is. They know how much of it is. For it to get to for one person's property, but as long as how big its property is, the size of of it, in what way has any of this ever went on to other people, bigger and over to other properties? That's what I'm saying. It's they know who's for each person for each property, they specific on where it goes to. And because like at one time the U.S. was talking about making food where it's part of the thing of like when you make radio, the outside radio, they're wanting to make it to where you're using corn, wheat, beans, and all that to make skins and all that for radios and bed mittens, stuff like that. More or less clone the for the purpose of manufacturing for for household use, furniture and all that as well too. That's what they were talking about during the early '90s. And with all the plants as well too, and with all for each type of plants, in what way does it how what the height thickness of it from in to out from the time that they do harvest, what size are the ones that hasn't been altered, like from the inside of the crop circle. What size, how tall, more or less how much of the area that has been affected, how much does it produce compared to beforehand? Okay,
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, I hit the wrong button on there when I was muting out. So, um, yeah, I actually hit the wrong button on there. I apologize about that. So, um, the thing that I found out right here is I went back through and pulled up some more information, and they started talking about something else called the expulsion cavities, which is blown out nodes, and that's they say that that's perhaps the most dramatic physical anomaly found. And it's the presence of small holes or open cavities blown directly out of the walls of the rigid layer nodes. Now, the stem explosion theory is one of them, and that's where alternative researchers have argued that it's proof of an intense external energy source, like an atmospheric plasma vortex or focused microwave beam. Now, according to this theory, the lower nodes of the plant are far more rigid than the upper ones. And when microwave energy rapidly heats up the internal sap into steam, the pressure builds up so fast that it can't stretch the tissue. Instead, it literally explodes out of the node's wall, leaving a clean, blown out hole. Then after that, you have the over moisture and fungal reality, where botanists and agricultural experts point out that these cavities can occur naturally under specific conditions. And that's when plants are flattened tightly against the damp earth. Moisture builds up rapidly. Now, if the crop is heavily fertilized or experiencing a late summer growth spurt, high internal vascular pressure, which is turgor pressure, combined with opportunist fungal infections or rapid rotting in the bruised node tissue, they can cause the cell walls to rupture and collapse, which creates natural holes that resemble small explosions. After that, I started finding out here too that this research team, they're called the BLT research team. They claim that seeds collected from inside certain authentic crop circles exhibited altered growth rates when they were germinated in laboratories. Now, in some cases, the seeds grew significantly slower or failed to germinate, while in others they grew at accelerated rates. They attributed this to alterations in the plant's embryonic development caused by energy exposure. Now, skeptics argue these differences are simply due to microclimate changes of being flattened. Seeds lying flat on the ground experience radically different humidity, soil contact, and sunlight compared to standing crops, naturally altering their maturity and health. So they've got that going on. Seeding and genetic development anomalies is what they called it. So apparently, whenever people who are the BLT research team, when they did it inside of a lab conditions, they found out that these plants actually germinated differently than what they should have done. is usually significantly slower, or it failed to germinate entirely. And then some of them grew at like accelerated rates too. Does that help out?
Yeah, it does. One thing too, I was curious. Have they ever tried to take all different types of seeds that was altered, like done that to, and tried to see what happens if you grow a small percentage of that in this in the in space to see the what is the process of that? Because it would, because since you talking about thing of radiation, and why I say it was radiation, because like plants got that. To me, it's got like a plant has acid. You know how it makes you itch and burn, and it creates like energy in the plant itself. It takes the what is that again from the sun? It transforms the sunlight into what the plant needs. Okay, what better way of controlling and manipulating the plant to is by you're going through the minerals acting like a battery to the plant as well. To me, that's what it's like. What happens? Okay, the process, because the plant is got does that where it absorbs up the sun's rays for food and for building material. Okay, so the acid from that in the plant, in what way as well too. What how much is each plant holds of acid in it, and how much does the different types of plants, how much does it acquire for the plant needs the sunlight, how much does it progresses of like the N acid in the plant itself from when it go before it gets altered, how much is in it before and then after of the acid in the plant itself, fluid and all that. Because if because for your small finger from top to where it bends is about I'd say about like an inch, and if all the plants are like as they saying different sizes and all that through the crops and all that, then the plant the device is precise. It is, and when it can lay different pictures, layouts, and all that, like for when they make like a circle or a design, like one laying on top of one. First one is an inch. The following one is like falling onto the next, making like a moon shape design. Okay, and for that you're talking about quite the thing of a zone, like an area, round area that you're got and a way to manipulate that area to make it, the plants do that. There's no other way that I can think of, and it seems odd that, and as well too, and how does the wildlife, how do they respond to the area there when all that this happens? Do you see them more coming in, or do they completely stay away from them areas? Wildlife do, because if the plants have been messed with, does wildlife still goes there to eat, or don't they? Okay, and when all this happens, and um, have anyone ever notices dead like field mice or whatever within that area from the crops? Okay.
Yeah. Give me a second. Yeah, I went through and I pulled up the stuff you were talking about the soil too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I can read off some of the stuff I found out for you when it comes to the soil. Now, there has been soil testing inside certain crop formations that have revealed like notable anomalies. Most notably, the presence of highly concentrated magnetic particles and changes to the soil's mineral composition. So, just like the plant damage, these soil findings are heavily debated between not just the alternative researchers but the mainstream scientists. Now, the primary soil anomalies discovered inside crop circles include spherical magnetic properties, which is iron microspheres. Now, um, what happened was groups like the BLT research team, they dragged magnets through the soil inside specific crop circles and they extracted unusual quantities of tiny microscopic iron spheres. Okay, and when they did that, they came up with two separate things. Well, there's two separate arguments there. The first one is the microwave meteorite theory, where these researchers argue that these particles are, like I said, microscopic space dust, and they're meteoric iron, basically, that naturally floats in Earth's atmosphere. Now, they hypothesized that the intense electromagnetic energy or plasma vortices that create the circles magnetize the soil and pull these particles out of the air. Because the particles were perfectly spherical, researchers argued they must have been rapidly melted and cooled while suspended in the air. Okay. Now, with that being said, you have to look at the farmer equipment reality of all this, where geologists and skeptics point out that the spherical iron particles are common in industrial agricultural soils. They're primarily the byproducts of friction from heavy farm machineries like tractors and combine harvesters. Which grind against rocks, or from standard industrial fertilizers that certain, that contain trace iron. Besides that, there is independent researchers like uh, an engineer by the name of Colin Andrews, who documented measurable fluctuations and spikes in the local magnetic fields directly within the borders of certain formations. Now, this goes into another thing, which are a couple of things, which is the Earth energy theory. Where people suggest that 20% of crop circles are created by the Earth's natural magnetic forces, which electrocating which are electrocating the crops from the ground up. Then you also have other people who believe in static charge reality. Where physicists, mainstream physicists, basically suggest that flattened thousands of plants quickly can generate a massive temporary electrostatic charge. Now, the plants basically act like a capacitor, holding on to the electricity and creating like a temporary magnetic imbalance between the vegetation and the earth. And this charge can linger for days, causing the compass and battery failures frequently reported by visitors. I don't know, that kind of is a little bit far-fetching if you ask me when it comes to that. So now there's another thing too, and that's also mentioned, and it's changes in crystalline clay structures. Okay, and this is in very rare cases where mineralogists they analyzed soil samples, and they noticed that the crystalline structures of clay minerals like iolite and smectite inside the circles appeared more ordered or fixed compared to samples outside the formation. Now, this could be from the extreme heat, which is actually a theory, and that's where alternative researchers claim that this change could only happen if the soil was briefly exposed to like temperatures reaching 100 or hundreds of degrees, basically Celsius, which they argue humans could not do overnight without scorching the crops. Then you have the pressure and moisture reality, where the critics argue that localized changes in soil compaction caused by the weight of several people or heavy boards compressing damp earth can subtly shift how clay particles align, altering how they appear under X-ray diffraction testing without requiring extreme heat. Now, that would be fine if the fact was that they're talking about these crystalline structures of clay mineral within the circle was ordered and they were fixed. You know what I mean? That's what they're talking about. They were ordered, and these people were talking like oh, they could become ordered because of freaking a board that was pressing down the damp earth. You know what I mean? That just does not make sense whatsoever. So that's all the stuff I found out when it comes to the soil. So get back to you.
Okay. Well, okay. And that one thing where they're talking like, well, it just seems a little peculiar on the process of for all the things that they're talking about and the concentration of the plant. Okay. And how many countries have they been affected by? I know they're saying, but the five main countries, how many are the from? How many? Most of them come from the plant when they do that. What five countries? Most a lot of them.
Now, are you talking about what countries crop circles have appeared in?
Yeah, the heaviest ones for five other countries. The most in five countries.
Well, I mean, the thousands of them have appeared across
Yeah, but
dozens
I
of
mean, but
countries.
the most of them.
Mostly it's in the United Kingdoms, the United States, Canada, Australia. There's even some in Japan and parts of Europe and South America.
Okay. And what type of soil are they in?
Well, I mean, you've heard me say right there, there's some that are in clay. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're different types of soil, you know, so.
Okay. Because and do they do the have there? What about corn? Have corn ever been affected as well too? And if so, in what way was the corn affected? Like, was it full grown or partially grown when they were changed, bend over? Because what happened to the corn that was fully grown then when it was being altered, if there was any? Because they're talking about fuel and all that, and if people takes their corn and does that, is the corn any good for that process or not?
Well, most of what I've found it's mostly within cereal grains, but they have been documented in a wide variety of plants, depending on the country and the season. You have them in wheat, you got them in barley, rye, and oats. Um, Oilseed rape or canola. That's another one. Then you have maize, which is in corn, and wheat and barley are harvested in late August. So the phenomena often shifts to cornfields. Corn stalks are incredibly tall, rigid, and thick because they're difficult to bend without breaking the heavy ears of corn. Um, Formations in corn are rarer and generally feature coarser, less integrated geometry. So you do have some that's in rice paddies. There's some that's in grass and reeds, and then you have niche agriculture crops too, where formations have been documented in fields of landseed, which is flax. There's soybean, sunflower, tobacco, and even vegetable crops like spinach or broad beans. So there's quite a bit. You, you're gonna have to unmute.
Well, that's curious because, like with corn, okay, does the corn process does that thing about the electrical outlet, which you're referring to, about they're claiming that plants and crops has a buildup of energy and all that within the plant and does it the process like in what way? And you start to think, okay, like potatoes as they show on there, you take a potato, through a process, you take aluminum foil, wrap it around it, where you can run something off of the potato by plugging it into the potato. Is the potato doing that process of what you're referring to? And if so, what other properties, what other stuff does about the same thing as what the potato does to create that situation? Because you like if farmers put plants fields one next to each other that does something similar like that, could, you know, would that could in such a way they are always popping up with all sorts of things about this happened and created this problem for this field here, and or creating or making it look like an orb or whatever. Because stuff today, who knows what, but it seems odd that if a plant's able to build up energy and create that situation for itself, how many other plants can do that as well too? If the soil, if there's a place where we call it minerals in the soil have crystals in it, to where you hear on the TV about crystals harmonize, or it can be used for energy conservation, how through the area. And that's another thing. What if there's property that has that in the soil of crystals, mineralized crystals in it, and the process is going through that would be one way of where you can control the plant and the soil as well by through that situation there, like the ley lines. What I'm referring, I mean, you trying to use this for the best way. Ley lines, where ley lines affect other outside of the areas and all that, and where they and what is the that's what I was wondering, if there's any minerals like crystals or anything like that in soils where these plants are at and that process has happened through there. And for the plants, and where a plant builds up big amounts of energy from, could be from that situation there. And if so, where could it come from?
Well, I know whenever I look at a lot of this stuff, it stops and all right, it makes me stop and think. Like they always talk about like it being a hoax, and they're really big about pushing the whole hoax thing because back in the 1970s, two crazy old guys said that they did it, and they just jumped on board with that, and they just keep pushing. This is a hoax. This is a hoax, and more of these crop circles pop up all around the world in different locations, and they all have the same exact thing. Like there's identical plant changes that take place where researchers have documented the exact same anomalies when it comes to the cellular stuff, like the blown out plant nodes that I was telling you about, and magnetic soil particles. This is happening every in all every freaking area of the world in different parts. You know what I'm saying? And these are similar. It's like one doesn't. It's not like one does it and then freaking another one does something completely different. You know what I mean? These are always happening where they have magnetic soil. They're having these cavities that are freaking blown out. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. And also, there's also like old stories about the old frickin' mowing devil back in 1678, which was before we had TV, or yeah, it might have even been before the printing press, for all I know. But it was actually written there where I believe it was in England. I'm not quite sure what area. It could have been in Scotland or Wales too, but it was in 1678 where they were talking about it, and it shows like a circular anomaly that appeared in fields way before the media could even talk about freaking crop circles, So that's the kind of stuff that really sticks out to me, you know. And there's actually cases not just in the UK. Like there's massive formations in Western Canada as well, and I believe now they're even in Australia in the desert. So I'm done.
Okay. Well, it's like this process where certain color lights or frequencies, okay, like I'll spell it. It's WAVES, and then you got an LR slash UV, then X, then V. And if all that, okay, if different things can manipulate plants, okay, have anyone ever tested for that situation in where if if a device could be used in that way or not to make a plant react in a certain way? Because you always hear about light rays doing certain things for plants and how too much. Well, in what well when there's cloudy and all that, when what way does the plant respond to that situation? Okay, and the molecule, the DNA or whatever to the plant, how does it produce? How does it make the plant change, respond to it? Okay, because you always hear them that the plant's got to have so much partial or full light, or 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 somewhat shady, more shady than light. Okay. Now, if that's the case, how does the plant handle that situation? And like when it comes to high frequencies, okay, in what way does the plant? What happens to the plant when it's near high frequencies, like a radio station close to field full of crops? Okay, does it kill the plant or alters, or in what way does it enhance the plant or creates a problem for the plant? Okay, because I because everyone's talking about, like, when they put G5 here in the U.S., they amped it up, and close to the areas of where the towers are at, while plants has backed away from them, and so did the trees. Now, what happens in that situation? Does it does the same thing with, to plants out all over, like next to the road, or when people and what communications and all that? Does it pick up in the soil to where it messes with the soil to the plant? Plant might not be getting it from directly from the air, but through the soil as well. Okay, what about that?
Are you wanting me to respond to that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, when it comes to a lot of that, I think that's something that most people, when it comes to this topic, don't really like. I've noticed that even people who are into ufology and the paranormal and stuff don't even really like talking about consciousness. And if you go into that, you'll hear some people who talk about the actual plants themselves, if they have a consciousness. And you take a look at like research that was done back in the 70s and even into the 80s, where they've done research on plants and they've found out that plants actually are repelled or attracted to certain type of music. You know what I mean? They also, they're aware of people who have a green thumb versus a person with a brown thumb. You know, when it comes to gardening, and they seem to get along better with people who are good at gardening and are, they know. You know, they did they did a show on the, what was it, um what's the name of that one TV series where it was um had Leonard Nimoy on it, and they did like something of the unknown. Their first episode was about that, about plants, and do they have a consciousness? Because they found out that plants can actually communicate with one another over freaking long distances when it comes to vines and stuff of that nature. So you've got a lot of different things to look at in that area. That's without even looking at UFOs or looking at ghosts or anything. You know, I've heard a woman that came on to a show called New Thinking Aloud, I believe is the name of the show, and she was talking about like old pagan beliefs and how people used to go out into the fields after the time it was for freaking growing crops, and they would throw festivals in celebration for the seasons, and then they stopped doing it, you know. And then now with today, you take a look and you see these crop circles. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe these plants uh, could be telling you something. You know what I mean? That's involved with all of that. So it's interesting. That's a whole different area. Um, That's my take on it. But I think that right there goes into the whole realm of consciousness, especially when it comes to electromagnetics. Okay.
But what I was referring to is okay, when sound waves through the atmosphere, in what different way does the plant, you know, does it alter the plant? You know, too much of uh, radiation from the signal, like a radio station, however the depth of power it uses, and then so and like they were, and I was wondering too that when all this happens with the plants, these people are saying that, well, I just don't really buy the thing that, I mean, you can tell too that if they're claiming that they did this and they did that with plants, okay, but you look at the the plant itself, you look at the plant, the height of the plant, and how like the design that's being made. If they can come up with an actual good how they did it, and like well, like okay, how much does a plant have of N acids in it? Okay, where because to me, when you mess with a plant, you're messing with N acids. The plant has to have that to break down materials and all that to absorb up. I guess that's how it works. And if so, okay, the whole process of that going through the plant and it builds up. That's how it gets its stuff from the sun. But in what way it when it goes through when the plant gets when that happens to the plant? Has anyone ever did a thing of showing how much of the N acid in the plant itself? Does it show how much is actually in the plant, the root all the way through? And if not, does it show the materials for the plant, the soil for the plant to survive when it's growing to support that N acids material from the soil to the plant? Does it show anything of that in the soil as well for the building blocks of the plant? And each different plants would be different on all that, from the climates, the plant, the soil, but in what different ways that in acid from the soil would how would it have to be in what how would it be in the soil, different brands of soils for all the soils to make to support plants that's being grown in? Okay, because beyond the weather, okay, like if some like here in Illinois, we in one state we have two different types of climates, two different types of soil. Okay, and then within that area, in what different plant, what plants can handle the two would be better in what soil, and
Well, I
that's
mean,
what I'm referring to.
for me, I mean, I don't really, I don't see the connection there when it comes to crop circles. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how any of that would relate to why crop circles appear whatsoever. I mean, that's just my take on it, you know? Um, it's a phenomena for one thing. So I think maybe like the results of what happened after freaking these crop circles happen, where they would have like a magnetic charge, that would be something that you would look at, and then like the whole magnetic iron uh, minerals that they found in the soils. That's interesting too. But then they said too that that's also common in usual crops where heavy machinery is used. So it is an interesting story when it comes, but I just don't see a lot of what you're saying right there as being like a why the actual crop circles happen. You know what I mean? To be honest.
What I'm referring to is crop circle. If you take like the acid of a plant, you drain from it, but where you turn it using its own materials to then make it do whatever you want. Okay, like you turn that plant into like a positive or negative, where you're folding the plant over using negative
Yeah,
neutrons.
that's what we were talking. That's what I was talking about. Like whenever that was the geologist's theory, where when they're laying down like that, they create a magnetic field because they have to use that energy to try to lift themselves back up.
Yeah, and they're using acid because acid's like a battery, ain't it?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe I read that.
Okay, and that would be another way of taking the process, taking it from negative to positive, to where the plants are folding over to one another. What I'm referring to is if you're using the energy from the plant for the process of folding over to make the design, you using the battery from the plant itself. The device is using manipulating that situation to do that to play out the thing because you're using its own energy and own acids.
Well, see, what I was getting from it was that it's not, it's the energy is not coming from the formation of it. It's coming from after the formation was made, where the plant's actually trying to raise back up and be straight and grow towards the sun. So
Yeah,
it's after that's where the magnetic it's reports of magnetism come from, where it's draining your batteries. People have been reporting their batteries and stuff being drained when they go to these sites. And they're making the claim that it's actually the plants trying to rise back up so that they can face up towards the sun. So,
yeah, because they were it was drained from them being bent over. What I'm referring to, and they're using they're using the atmosphere as like like drains the energy, like you were saying. It's using any magnetic thing in the atmosphere, what like the orb does with the plants. The orb is doing the same thing to the plants as what the plants were doing to the vehicles.
okay.
Because
So you've gotten up to an hour and 8 minutes. So are you wanting to wrap this up and call
well,
it?
let's a little bit more, but yeah,
Go ahead.
what I'm referring to is like in Canada. Okay, when this all happened, and where was this at happening in Canada? Okay, and what because over in Canada, it's awful hard for certain plants to grow there in Canada. And what was it that was uh, that was that done to, and what part of Canada? Because and if so, have anything ever this happened in Mexico? Because they got a lot of farmland in the middle of the desert as well. And I was wondering in what way was it, if there is, in what way did the crops from there, in what way was it affected as well too from Mexico? I was curious because you never quite hear it, but they do got a lot of good crops there. Okay, thank you. Okay, um, well, thank you for watching. Roger Hanson is part of this. Please let us know how you, if you have any ideas, views, where you're from. Let us know. And you have a nice day. Thank you.
All right.
And this is we're oh
The unknown.
the unknown. Okay. I hope you have a night. At least let us know what you think. If you have any other ideas of this, what we were talking about, hit other subjects if you know of them. Okay. Thank you.